We are back with some learnings, some interesting learnings.
Our increasing cost per purchase from Meta reported algorithm, is that BS or not? Is it inflated? Is it deflated? Does that help us scale? We validated that our Meta cost per purchase was overinflated by 27%. Wild numbers to validate that for our brand, we can acquire and go fish for people on Meta because they just have great signaling that no one is beating. But we're seeing a lot of those returns and those conversions go over to Amazon. So now we have this closed loop attribution test to validate that, which unlocks a ton. Yeah. It's the level of confidence. That's a lot of what you and I have been jamming on offline is these experiments are just invoking confidence in making the decisions. And the brand that has huge potential to scale and grow, confidence in making those decisions is invaluable at this stage of growth. So lots to go.
Love it.
Lots to talk through more. And I love this thing that you keep going back to of like, we get a question, we get an answer. It unlocks 10 other questions. And really understanding and navigating where we want to go is going to unlock the most profitable growth. That's the true north.
All right. We are back with some learnings, some interesting learnings. As always, Cam and I are here to talk about what's worth testing, what's been tested, where do we go next. And Cam's been sharing kind of some of the stuff that's been happening with me in a Slack channel, but we actually haven't had a chance to jam on it at all. So you guys are getting raw thoughts right now.
From both of us. Yeah.
From both of us. Cam, so last time we were talking about kind of like 3 areas. The one we decided to focus in on is this kind of like, we've got the Amazon business, we've got the Shopify business. I'm spending to Shopify. Should I be? What's going on? Do you want to talk about the test we ended up putting together? Maybe like why, how, and then we can get into what we've learned, which is very interesting.
Yeah, we ran a pretty closed loop hypothesis around 2 things. So I'm trying to validate that we can continue to increase our spend on Meta because I feel like there's a huge opportunity to bring new users to the brand, but things are getting a bit more expensive these days on that platform. And wanted to run a test that validated that we don't have a leaky bucket on the channel. We have more of an omni-channel consumer. So we worked with you guys to set up a theme test. So we have a control group where Meta users coming from an ad click, to be super specific, are only seeing the Shopify add to cart. And then the test theme, they have an option. It's like a choose your own destiny game, right? You can buy bare bones broth on the website, or we now have a new click of buy with Amazon Prime. So this was to help us understand 2 things. Our increasing cost per purchase from Meta reported algorithm, is that BS or not? Is it inflated? Is it deflated? Does that help us scale? Can we account for a little bit more revenue from Amazon on the back end, looking at CAC to LTV, et cetera? And the second was just more of a funnel insights, like understanding consumer behavior, as I'm bullish on this broader structure that consumers are shopping on marketplaces more and more because of the convenience and pricing. And rather than buying individual brands on individual brand.coms. So we had 2 really big learnings from this in the first 2 weeks of running this over the break. So the first one was related to the Meta cost per purchase. We validated that our Meta cost per purchase was overinflated by 27%. And it's overinflated by 27% because through that closed loop attribution, we found that people are coming from Meta ad clicks and purchasing on Amazon. Wild to think about. So I now have the validation for more room to grow on Meta. We still have cost caps in the campaign, but we can give them a little bit more room now that we know that off-platform purchases are happening from that source media. So huge unlock there. Basically, continue to look at optimizing spend on Meta and growing the account on digital platforms. Second thing is more of that consumer behavior and the funnel insights. So I'm reading this because I still can't believe I can say this out loud from my other screen here. 43% of the add to carts, again, option 1 is add to cart on Shopify, option 2 is add to cart on Amazon. 43% of add to carts from the test group were Amazon Buy with Prime. Super, super strong signal that our consumer prefers that marketplace. Second to that, from the test group, total overall add to cart percentage coming from meta ads rose from 6.8% to 9.4%. So a signal, 38% increase in people coming from meta ads, validating that we just aren't getting that signal back to meta to account for conversion signal, et cetera, because we have a consumer that's going to Prime. So a mouthful of information that we can digest here on the pod, but wild, wild, wild numbers to validate that for our brand, we can acquire and go fish for people on Meta because they just have great signaling that no one is beating. But we're seeing a lot of those returns and those conversions go over to Amazon. So now we have this closed loop attribution test to validate that, which unlocks a ton, which could be a whole nother podcast.
I love that. So I think when we first started to talk about IntelliGems, one of the things we wanted to do is like test the amount of flavors on a PDP. And we have evolved into this, which is amazing. So like two key insights there. Of people who are adding to cart, when you gave them the option, 43% to Amazon. That's pretty wild. And an increase in the amount of people who are actually adding something to cart. So before we dive into that, there might be some IntelliGems customers listening being like, yo, but Cam, like, how do you know what's happening in Amazon? And like, how are you kind of like making sense of Shopify versus Amazon? So do you maybe like, without going super into the technical details, like how did you accomplish that? Like, how are we seeing Shopify and Amazon in this situation?
Yeah, great question. And I learned this through the help of your dev team as well as my dev team as well. So two things are key factors here. In IntelliGems, you can set up custom events. So the custom event for us, and I want to be super clear, the creative on our site looks like the multi-channel fulfillment button that comes from Amazon Prime that you can install. We just creatively made it look like that, but this is a custom event on our site. So we can pass that back through an event click to IntelliGems and then look at the custom event conversions. Huge insight that I didn't know about IntelliGems when we first started working together. And then second, we use Amazon's new attribution links that have gotten way better in the last couple of months, let alone the last couple of years, of really understanding the source data of that click and then what is being purchased when that user goes over to the platform. And most importantly for us, we get some money back, right? We're a vendor bringing some attribution sales to Amazon. So there's a percentage of our products, but there's also a percentage of anything that person puts in their cart along with bare bones. So the other key highlight from this is the development work that this took has already been paid for in its first 2 weeks because the money that we got back from the attribution. Yeah. So it's a win-win-win.
So yeah, the attribution links basically, hey, we got two themes running. One includes that button. It has a custom event on it so that we can see what the add to carts and what the clicks are looking like to that button. The attribution link, you are then reconciling what is happening in the Shopify instance with any attributable sales that came through that direct link to try to get the comparison here. Okay, let's talk about this. So you last time we were jamming, the idea here was I want to free up more money to put to Meta. There's the customer behavior component of this. So like with this insight, where are you going next? Like what's changing about the business now that you know this? And I'm assuming, I actually didn't check, like I'm assuming you're maybe continuing this. Like we looked at this at 2 weeks, but like we probably still have it on, or did we end up ending it?
Yeah, good call there. So next very obvious step, just trying to keep this as scientifically sound as possible, is we're just going to do a durability test. Fancy term for let it ride for 30 days or more.
Ride. Yep.
Look, we had peak seasonality for our category of bone broth during the 2 weeks of this after Christmas, New Year, New You. We had some inventory challenges on the site that we did not have on Amazon. So these are great numbers, but we want to make sure, to the namesake, it's durable enough to really make some changes. So that's the first step. Just let it ride. We know this works. Yep. We know IntelliGems is feeding us some really, really quality testing results here. But these initial results are insane. So that's part one. Part two, and it validates for us going into 26 that we can continue to increase our spend on Meta. So for the last 90 days, we saw some drop in performance and all brands look at performance on Meta a bit differently, but we're looking at a few key things. But when we incorporate this omni-channel experience and omni-channel conversion, all of those numbers normalize and validate for us that when we're spending X on Meta, we're seeing great results. And when we spend 10X, we're also seeing those same results. So I've been very fortunate to be at this brand for 6+ months. And when I started in this summer, we were kind of just tinkering with Meta and growing the brand on digital channels. And we have, what's the math here? We have 5X'd our spend on Meta in a short 6 months. And this test validates for us that we can go up to 10X that. And with some predictive analysis, we think that we'll see the same cost per purchase, landing page conversion rate, et cetera, because of this. So just more of validating what we knew, but at these types of spend levels, we got to have some concrete data to share out with leadership, the board, et cetera, to show that we're continuing to see the Meta performance as we spend more.
So one thing that comes to mind for me when I'm looking at this is we were talking last time, we're increasing Meta spend. It's going to the Shopify site. We now have a choice where I can continue to shop there or I can go make this purchase on Amazon. Have you been thinking at all about like, do we skip the Shopify site? Do we go straight to Amazon? What, like, I know you have like two distinct businesses here and like we might be doing something different on Amazon versus Shopify. So like where do we go from here with like the Amazon business versus the Shopify business?
Fantastic question. So there's always the value of the Shopify business. First and foremost and most obvious is just zero-party data. So
Yep.
we want to collect a lot of our insights of use case, consumer data, et cetera. We truly have a brand that can reach everyone. So we have to be very purposeful on our digital marketing, and understanding those segmentations is beyond valuable. That even as Amazon analytics has gotten better, it's not that detailed. So we kind of got the best of both worlds here, right? I'm getting a Meta click. That's a signal to Meta to continue to show that's the person that we want to go get, serve impressions to them. I'm getting someone to the site. We don't have a generic pop-up. We have a very intentional pop-up of let us know where you are in your journey and how Bare Bones fits into that. Great zero-party data. But then I'm also learning where you buy my stuff. So I can learn from the ad click of the creative, the copy, et cetera, from that ad group. And I can take those learnings over to Amazon, more lower PPC keyword stuff. But we're going to start investing in DSP on Amazon as well. So it's another signal for us to help us understand as we go more upper funnel on that platform, a lot of winnings. So here's the key stat that drove all of this that encouraged me to reach out to you and the team. When I first started, only 6% of Shopify users came back for a third purchase on the website. That number is almost 4 times on Amazon. So we know for our brand as a pantry staple that repeat purchase is coming from a very convenient marketplace and the largest of them all. So as I'm scaling up Meta, I can't validate that I'm getting that return from a website user. Can I validate that somewhere else so I can continue to spend on Meta? So long-winded answer to your question, but more succinctly, yes, there is a place for Shopify in our ecosystem. We won't abandon the website by any means, but we will look at its value a bit differently moving forward. And where we sit today is 2026 is set up where Shopify is the acquisition funnel and Amazon is the retention funnel. So we're doing full funnel paid media on both channels, but we're shifting more towards net new awareness from the Meta Shopify funnel because for some reason, Meta is really good at finding us bone buff consumers, whereas Amazon, there's just a lot of competition over there. So it's getting a bit expensive. So there's certainly a place for both in our ecosystem moving forward.
So with what you've like, love this test, love the learnings. One thing I kind of like end up saying to everyone is, oh, what do we test next? Like, what's the roadmap? And it's usually like, well, the answer to the last question usually opens up 3 new questions. So you get
Fair.
one answer, but you usually get a lot of questions from it as well. So where are you thinking of going now? When we first talked, it was we had this, we had this concept of like the different journeys in the customer behavior, and we had offers as kind of like the three areas.
Yep.
Are we planning to move into some of those areas? Is there stuff to still explore in this first one? Like,
Yeah.
did it open up new questions? Like, where are you thinking we go next in terms of what questions to ask, what decisions to validate?
Yeah. So this goes back to your original question of kind of what's the purpose of Shopify now for seeing conversions come from there. So two things from that. We want to scale up Meta so we get more zero-party data on which of these community matrices work best for our brand and provide the best LTV. What's interesting now, and what will be the next step after this durability test of just does this work over time, is working with our retention team for any of those funnel specific or community specific messages via email and social for our owned media, as we call it, to drive that to Amazon rather than back to the website. So with attribution links, you can see the source data. If I can send out emails and if I can look at my LinkedIn profile on Instagram and TikTok and see that I'm getting people directly over to Amazon and that's a repeat purchase, not necessarily a new, then I've got a really clear understanding of my full funnel approach here and how to scale that going into the new year.
I love that. So we're kind of like treating, we got the acquisition funnel, we got the retention funnel. As we learn more about people, we want that kind of repeat. We want that repeat purchase behavior to be happening on Amazon, because the hypothesis is it's easier to repeat the purchase. It can become more habitual on Amazon than Shopify.
Convenience is the word that we've been using in terms.
Yep.
The shopper's convenience is much more.
So inside of the Shopify land, we're getting this first party data. What are you thinking in terms of where to go next, what to solve, what to answer in Shopify land? So it sounds like we got a lot of great learnings from here. We've kind of like figured out what our funnel strategy is. We're going to start sending the returning customers to Amazon. Sounds like even like if the durability test holds, we will continue to have meta traffic driving to the Shopify site with the options so that we can get the conversion no matter where they prefer to make that purchase.
Yep.
For the people who choose to purchase on Shopify, and like maybe even people who aren't coming in from the meta ads and are just interfacing with the Shopify site, anything on your mind in terms of like what you want to accomplish there?
Yeah, it's a great question. The purpose of Shopify is now a sole acquisition channel. So something that kind of made it to the back burner because we were so focused on this omni-channel approach the last few quarters is optimize the site for acquisition and look at retention efforts of the Shopify ecosystem driving to Amazon. So little things like landing page tests, more frequented creative coming out of Meta, maybe a unique user site experience based on what that answer to that super quick quiz is. And for us, it's just how are you going to utilize bare bones in your journey? So a completely different theme or site experience based on how you answer that, irrelevant of the source of your traffic. So it really helps us drive what is that next project? What is that next optimization look? Where do we go find incrementality? And the majority of this test is pointing towards how do we optimize the website to acquisition from that first purchase? Is it more education? Is it deeper discounts? Is it a UX UI thing? Not quite sure, but that's probably what our next tests are going to be.
I have an idea for you.
Hit me.
So when people are answering that quiz, you're essentially trying to sort them into where the journey they're on, and the journey they're on is going to lend itself to different value props, different ways of talking about something,
Correct.
different images. I think last time we were talking, I don't know if this was in the last episode, but we were talking about like there's new mothers versus those who are like have like different medical conditions, and like if I'm targeting the mother and I have like a bunch of dudes on the page, like probably not the most conducive to getting that person to buy. So one thing that you can do in IntelliGems is have a specified link that goes to a personalized experience. So we can take a PDP and have that PDP change based on the link that someone is coming in through. So we
Wild.
could have someone answer that question, and then depending on how they answer that question, have the next thing that pops up be the specific link to send them to like the personalized page. So
Yeah.
inside of those, we wouldn't necessarily, I know you have a lot of questions on should we be more brand, community, journey oriented? Should we be more product focused? So I think there's like two things we could go do here. We can have one actual like traditional A/B test where we kind of go more lifestyle, more community, and have one that's more product oriented and pit those against each other and see what happens. Kind of like on a everyone comes here standpoint.
Right.
So we could just have that happen out of a meta ad. And then we could actually have like the 4 different community groups filtering out of that quiz. And it wouldn't be putting them against each other per se. But I mean, you've seen the blue bars. It gives you a pretty good look at what's happening if you're running
Yeah.
it through there. So we would actually basically have like a per community dashboard on like how things are going. That would give you a really good understanding of, hey, this type of creative, this type of person, this type of buyer is better converting, more profitable, has the potential for upsell. And you can actually start to target and tailor how you're going to market to them based on those learnings.
Yeah, it's spot on. And what we're doing right now is kind of capturing that through its infancy with post-purchase surveys. So we're asking consumers after the purchase, what community are you part of? We're tagging that user and that order, and then we can see retention analytics, LTV, et cetera. So we found one of those 4 communities that is a bit slightly more valuable to Barebones longer term. But what's most interesting that we've learned from that, which would drive this intelligence test that you're alluding to, is the use case is completely different. And most importantly, the frequency of use is drastically different in each of those communities. So this would set up also like retention-based timing. I'm not going to send you an email once a month because you haven't gone through your product yet because you're in this community. Another community, I can send this weekly because this is an everyday consumption pantry staple kind of thing. So I love this idea that you're suggesting of, look, a tangible example of this is the new mother community that we're really targeting right now that is doing well. The value proposition of Barebones is the multifaceted approach of protein, collagen, and hydration, which all moms and postpartum need for their recovery. That's a completely different communication strategy compared to our weight loss consumers, which is calories in, calories out, and protein density. So it's a lot more of a different creative and copy approach that would be on those PDPs or collections pages or the emails themselves. So there's a lot of value for us, and I think a lot of uncovered gems there that we can look towards that would help us over communicate different communication and creative strategies to each one of those communities.
I love that you said uncover some gems.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the dad jokes in there, all the marketing copy on that.
Yeah. Yep. That's really interesting on like the frequency as well. Cause like personalizations is hot in D2C right now. Like, and I think you can also over personalize to some extent. Like, hey, for me, there's always been this dream of like, an experience for Cam, an experience for Alex. And I think that like that it gets really complicated. So I like this approach of like, what is a specific enough group that is also large enough to be meaningful, and like splitting it into these communities and having a hypothesis around this that we can then validate through some of the tests we were talking about. And hey, by next episode, hopefully we have some of this in and we can talk about it. I like this. So basically we have an idea where it's, let's test the more lifestyle journey type messaging landing page versus the more like, hey, here's what the product is. And like, I think this is also interesting too, if we're talking about Shopify as an acquisition channel, where it's like, do I need the website to try to like get that habitual component to this? Or do I just need it to be as effective at getting you to buy the thing you came to get? So
it's
I think like this is really
a lot of this is leaning
right?
towards the latter, right? Yeah.
Yep. So we can test that. And then we end up putting together the community specific pages and see like, hey, because when someone comes in from the post purchase and says, hey, I'm into this, we can see what the behavior looks like on the site. But that also is probably just going to tell us which of these communities is the site currently best for,
That's it.
not which of these communities actually is the best for Barebone. So like, hey, if we can put some of this together, we can actually start to see if we target, does it change anything in these communities?
And I think more so to that point is of those communities, some over index towards digital and some over index towards retail. So
Interesting.
there's a demographic split in each of those communities. Our older demographic is shifting towards retail. Our younger demographic is shifting towards digital. And that middle, that sweet spot that every marketer in CPG is after, female 35 to 44, they're just leaning towards Amazon and the convenience of other marketplaces. So that's helped uncover a lot of things too of how we communicate in different channels of our business, how we communicate in retail, how we communicate in digital as well. So to your point, man, so many learnings from this. I think really understanding where we go from here, the whole hypothesis in itself of what's the next step with this and what do we do, but a lot of different avenues to explore for sure.
We asked a question, we got an answer, and we got 4 more questions out of that
And
answer, and we
that'll be the
go
cycle
explore them
in
all.
perpetuity. Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be the answer.
Okay. To move away from that for a second, anything else kind of like strategically on your mind, keeping you up at night? Again, we talked about like the offers, some of these other things. I think you mentioned like looking into the price elasticity, trying to get a little bit of like a handle on that on the Shopify store as well.
Yeah. Oh man, that's quite literally keeping me up at night. So now that we know that a majority of our retention-based efforts should be based on Amazon, price elasticity or inelasticity is going to come into play. We have a thriving club business. We have a thriving mass business. We need to be very cognizant of our retail partners and the pricing strategy that we've deployed in those channels. But we also need to maintain our Amazon business because it is extremely underutilized despite the growth that we've seen year over year. So we have a exclusive pack that we have for digital channels. So the 16 count of our bone broth that you see behind me that is only sold on the website and on Amazon. And currently we price those differently because we over promote on the site to drive that acquisition. We hope that those retention-based pricing strategies on Amazon will drive the repeat purchase. We have some sneaky 3Ps that a lot of CPG brands are dealing with. They're buying from club on super discount, repackaging, selling. I've also kind of connected the dots that they're buying on our buy more, save more on the site and then reselling that pack on Amazon. And for those that aren't familiar, if you undercut by 1 cent, you get the buy box, you get the featured offer. 1 cent makes a bigger difference.
Yep.
So as we look to scale our Amazon channel, the pricing strategy becomes very, very relevant in, do we price it to keep the margin to allow us to continue to scale, but velocity might be impacted? Or do we lower that price to increase velocity? Net over time, we should see more, if not the same, net contribution. So as we kind of shift gears of what we've been thinking about here, now knowing the over index that our consumers have towards shopping on Amazon, the pricing on Amazon is really the primary thing that I'll be thinking about in Q1 and what's been keeping me up most of the night. But I think that you had an idea of how we can use IntelliGems kind of by proxy to do that on the site and take that over to Amazon.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, Amazon's getting better at a lot of like the data you're getting, the attribution, it is getting better, but like it's still not the Shopify, like everything you know about the customer on the Shopify
and doing
side
a
of things.
price
So
test on Amazon is damn near impossible because you've
hard.
got all kinds of volatility factors of in stock, prime eligible, 3Ps, all kinds of things. So I think any suggestions that you and the team might have of how we can run something through IntelliGems on the Shopify site that by proxy, and given this the success of this new button and the test that we've seen, it's a considerable amount of traffic that comes to the site, but buys on Amazon. I think our proxy continues to get smaller and smaller if we did something on the site for price elasticity tests.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head with pricing's interesting because as you move price, it moves multiple metrics like
Yeah, it's not.
profitability,
Yeah,
conversion. Like you just said margin and velocity, but like essentially, yeah, like my price goes up, I get better margins, my velocity goes down. I decrease my price, velocity goes up, conversion increases, my margins go down. And there
yeah,
is a sweet spot. And what's really interesting is like it's not necessarily, oh, like the each dollar you move this kind of like moves
yeah.
equally. It's like there
Right.
can potentially be a sweet spot where it's like, oh shit, that looks great. And then 50 cents higher, it just falls off a cliff. So
Very
I think
small
like the
window.
really interesting thing here is because you have those, like, you have to be cognizant of we've got retail, like you are sold everywhere and you have retail partners, you're selling into those. But like what's interesting is you have the product that is specific to the digital channels
Yes.
that you have full freedom to play with because none of your retail partners are carrying that SKU.
Yep.
So I think like the way I would approach this is let's use that product to start because it's not interfering or potentially like hurting relationships anywhere else. You as the person in charge of the digital P&L
Yeah.
have full control over that. So I would start with that product and I would just start with a straddle. So like, hey, what are we priced at right now? Go a certain percentage up, a certain percentage down. Now, one thing that is I always recommend, and you might get scared by this, but it's you uh, one of like my favorite customers had this analogy where like, hey, if you're boiling water, you don't just like keep on increasing it by like 5%, 5%,
Good
5% till
analogy.
it's boiling. It's
Yeah.
you crank it all the way and then you start dialing it back as it's boiling. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting to do these straddle tests and actually move prices by more than you would think. So like I've actually seen people be like, I'm going to try going 60% higher and just like
Wild.
see what happens. One, it's going to kind of it's going to give you signal fast because like one of the most like common misconceptions is that you just need more data to get to stat sig. That's kind of true. You need more data,
Yeah.
but it is also how big of a change you make. A bigger change needs less data to get to stat sig than a small change that amounts to a coin flip. That could take
Yeah.
forever. So when you're inside of like doing these pricing changes, straddle it and go bigger than you might think. Instead of going 5% up, 5% down, think about what would be like, like, don't go crazy, but like, could it be 30% up and 30% down and see what's happening inside of there? Because if we straddle this, you're actually going to be able to, at the same time, through the same test, kind of plot out that elasticity curve because you're going up and down and you're going to see
Right.
what the trade-offs look like in both directions at the same time. Moving this down, hey, we're actually seeing like an increase in velocity where this could make sense. Now let's hone it in on that side of the price. Oh, like boosting this up actually isn't having much of an impact on conversion at all. Let's play around inside of there. So my
Yeah.
recommendation would be let's try this product or all the products at a range that's acceptable where our partners don't feel cheated or we're undercutting there. Run the straddle so that we can plot a bit of an elasticity curve here. And then over to the next test becomes zero in, zero in, zero in instead of dialing it up.
Yeah. I like the idea, right? Because that delta is most likely going to be the same at sample size X and sample size 10X. And that's why I love the digital channel because you get those instantaneous results. You don't have to sit around for 30 plus days. We're in a really good position right now that the amount of impressions that we're serving, site traffic that we get, and our order volume is going to tell us pretty quickly what it is. So I like the recommendation of going a bit heavier to see what is that impact. And what's most important for our business is profitable growth. And that's our true
Yep.
north, right? So this is not PE backed growth at all costs. We want to do this sustainably. So having that as the KPI really helps as well determine, cool, we have this stat stig. Well, so so what? But like the true driver is just going to be net contribution, and we can see the volume of that at scale. We can see a lot of things from that approach. So that tracks, man. I think what would be really, really wild is understanding that as not just a proxy, but through direct attribution from the Amazon button. Because from this test that you guys helped us structure with the custom event on IntelliGems, I think the other big learning that I didn't review from kind of the original part of the conversation was the add to cart to conversion percentage is way better on Amazon than the add to cart to conversion percentage on Shopify. So that is our drop off point of truly having direct correlation through all of this that we're talking through. But that percentage being north of 85%, anything that we're going to see is going to be pretty darn conclusive. So I don't know if there's opportunity creatively to show the pricing on Amazon as like a peek through the window of a hover state or something cool like that. We can nerd out on it. But I think your suggestion of running a pricing test on Shopify that would determine what pricing on Amazon could be is much more realistic than it was 30 days ago because of these insights that we've captured.
This is what we were talking about last time with the nibble to bite. Is like, I
good
would love to know about pricing on Amazon versus Shopify versus retail versus mass versus club. And like, that'd be a really hard endeavor. But hey, I could go try in Shopify. I could go try in Shopify on a particular product, get enough insight to inform, again, the question to the answer that gives us more questions to go after. And like, this is like, again, we can nibble here because, dude, you've been in the retail game long enough where like, you want to change prices at
thank you.
a national retailer, good luck, right? Like you don't get that ability to experiment, but we do have it in the digital channel. So we might as well like get everything we need, be more like, if you did want to do a price change across everything, like you better be more confident than I have a hunch.
That's well said. Yeah. It's the level of confidence. That's a lot of what you and I have been jamming on offline is these experiments are just invoking confidence in making the decisions. And the brand that has huge potential to scale and grow, confidence in making those decisions is invaluable at this stage of growth. So lots to go.
Love it.
Lots to talk through more. And I love this thing that you keep going back to. Like we get a question, we get an answer. It unlocks 10 other questions. And really understanding and navigating where we want to go is going to unlock the most profitable growth. That's the true north.
Profitable growth. And I think a lot of people listening to this, like I've been, what are we, a week and a half into the new year. And I swear every single call I'm listening to of people coming to talk to IntelliGems is, this is the year of contribution margin. This is the year of like profitability, like pick your way of saying it, but like, hey, I need to be more profitable. So, okay. We'll come back as always to talk about what's going on, where we're going next. Cam, we'll keep the existing test going. We'll report back on the durability of those findings the next time we come together. Let's get this price elasticity experiment off the ground. Let's run the straddle so that we can report back on that. And then we can talk about some of like the other kind of smaller things like, hey, we could run the journey versus product as like just a straight A/B out of Meta. I think that'd be really interesting to do at the same time. And then as you start to explore those different communities, let's work on like actually putting pages together to make sure that we're not just picking the community that the site is good for now versus picking the best community to be profitable.
Yep. That's big. That's another, you asked a good question, is what's keeping me up at night. That's a big one, is the consumer that got us from A to B is not the consumer that's going to get us from B to C. And as we continue to put the brand out there and serving millions of impressions a day, we're finding new consumers that we didn't even think about in our original marketing strategies. So being able to customize that and segment that out is incredibly valuable for us as we continue to scale. So I'm very, very intrigued to utilize the platform for, tell us what journey that you're in, and here's how you will have your site experience. That would unlock a ton for us.
All right, let's make those happen for everyone listening. TBD on how many of these we get launched and live and can talk about by next time. But there will be some
3-year podcast, huh?
Hey, I'm for it. Like I think one of the biggest things is, hey, what do I test next? And that's the wrong thing to ask. It's, hey, where do I go now? What's important to me? What do I need to? Confidence and validation. Answer questions, validate decisions. Just keep on going. So theoretically, we could keep going in perpetuity. We might be on here like 80 years old, still jamming and going. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back for the next episode with the results of some of the tests we were talking about today.
Will do, man. Thank you.